it takes the head of a group to be a mole or infiltrated to really shift the whole group's dynamics. Imagine speaking to bin Laden and saying basically, are these days behind you? Joulani will serve the best job. I mean, he's an Islamist, for God's sakes. Everybody loves him. Look, the whole country loves this guy. Syria is an important piece on the Middle Eastern chessboard. Will the US leave Turkey to take over Syria? No. Can you compare Syria with America? Can you compare Hezbollah with America?
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the I3 Pulse. Is the claim that Joulani is a US agent a conspiracy theory? And who really controls Syria? Is it the rebels, Turkey, or the US? And finally, why didn't Israel move into Damascus when they had the chance? We'll talk all about this today on I3 Pulse. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Assalamu alaikum wa barakatuh.
So, Sheikh, we're going to jump right in. You made a big claim on the last episode, and you said that Joulani is a CIA agent.
I did. So Al-Jolani for me, and for millions of other people, he's just a CIA agent. And
to be honest, that really comes across as a conspiracy theory. So
it does.
I'm going to give you the chance right now to give all the evidence on the table, if there is any evidence, that Joulani is a CIA agent and not a sincere reformer who's changed his ways.
Perfect. So look, there's really 6 main evidences of why he is a CIA agent. Number one is understanding the militant groups in general. Okay, militant groups are non-state actors. Okay, the ones that own military equipment, are state actors. So when you have a militant group, you need to ask the question: where did they get their equipment from? Number 2, where did they get their funding from? Right, because military equipment are very costly, so they need lots of funding, which is usually a state actor, and they need the equipment, which is always a state actor. Because even the black market of military equipment and so forth is still controlled by state actors, or at least is still infiltrated by state actors. You understand? So this must be understood. So when we say that this person actually created a militant group, right? Where did they get the equipment from? There has to be, who are they being supplied by? Who are they being funded by? And that being said, within this specific case, first evidence, we know for a fact that ISIS was created by the CIA fully. Number 2, Al-Qaeda, if not created by the CIA, it is definitely infiltrated and influenced and controlled by the CIA. So this person basically was a person who created one of these groups. So we understand this is one evidence, of why we think he's a CIA agent. Number 2, his history. Not his own only, but his father. His father was an Arab nationalist Nasrites that was living in Syria, arrested, and he escaped prison. I mean, you've seen the prisons of Syria. What do you mean escaped prison?
It was Hafiz al-Assad's time, right?
During Hafiz al-Assad's time, correct. Yeah, correct, which is Bashar's father, which is more ruthless than Bashar. And then he basically kind of went to Jordan, Iraq, whatever it is, came back, got imprisoned again, and he also was let go by the Hafiz al-Assad regime. What does that mean? That means somebody is pushing for him to be let out. And then he went to Saudi Arabia, which is a friendly US regime too, and then came back to Damascus as a person who's supposed to be an anti-Assad regime person. But still, he was allowed in, lived in one of the high-class areas in Damascus, and then suddenly his son becomes an ISIS person. This is another evidence that this person was actually more recruited. His father and himself were recruited by the CIA. You understand? Otherwise, the regime wouldn't have allowed them to, exist and coexist and so forth. This is also another thing, because each one of these is a category of evidence. It's not one evidence, by the way. So another point, so his father, himself, and now, after he was imprisoned in Iraq by the American, in, I think, Camp Bucca, if I'm not mistaken, and he was let go afterwards. After he was let go, he kind of, created this militant group that we spoke about in point number 1. So you can see these relationships. Again, all this put together is just evidence number 2. What is number 3? Number 3 is, let's assume these things are not, heavy enough in the evidence scale that he is an agent. He created this militant group. It was somehow independent. Somehow there's no connection to state actors. Somehow they got equipped. Somehow they got funded. Okay, let's assume all that. What did he do? You would think, because he's supposed to be an Islamist, right, militant terrorist, he's supposed to go attack the regime. right? Because that's, that's what the Islamists want, to get rid of this regime. No, he actually only attacked rebels. Until the rebels, he did not attack the Assad regime at all. Actually, in many different situations, and this is in I think there's a Washington Institute analysis that there was almost a cooperation between Jabhat al-Nusra, which is the group, the Al-Qaeda group offshoot that he created, and the Assad regime against the rebels. That he would basically retreat from areas, the Assad regime would come in, and so forth. All this is evidence number 3. Evidence number 4 is after basically the demise of, or semi-demise of the rebels, and HTS controlling Idlib and some parts of Halab and so forth. How did he treat the Islamists, and how did he treat the even the non-militant Islamists, the even basically some of the Syrian citizens that are good citizens of Syria, or have at least an Islamic outlook? You'd think he's supposed to be nice to them and so forth. No, he imprisoned them. It's as if basically the United States acting, not him. You see what I'm saying? Or at least the enemies of these people. Political prisoners until today are in his jails. Today, they're still in his jails in the HTS-controlled north. And there was even like a protest by the mothers of these people, telling them they're innocent and they're not even militant and they're peaceful, and or at least they're innocent, even if they basically belong to other militant Syrian groups, not terrorist ones like his. Are in jails right now, and until now they're in jail. They freed Said-9, they freed all the other jails, but these guys are still in his jails. What do you call that? That's number 4. Number 5. Okay, after he took over the country and opened Aleppo and Hama and Homs and Damascus, what did he do? Every policy that he actually chosen preserves at least some aspect of the old tyrannical regime. Whether basically him allowing the old militias of Bashar al-Assad, or some of the leaders and some of the main actors of the regime, to basically kind of be, just roam freely, no problem, whatever it is. Bro, at least take them to court. At least basically set up just and equitable court systems.
So someone might say, for those guys that, he just wanted to gain control of the country, didn't want to go and create, let these guys go, and, as long as they don't touch power.
First of all, the rebels really on the ground are calling for them to be sent to court at least, right? And number 2, this is not one thing. Like, we're going to count within this category of evidence evidence number 5. There's many things that he did. Number 2, his dealing with Prime Minister of Bashar al-Assad and making sure things are delivered as they wish. They gave him control to do the transition. These people can burn paper trail of crimes, and he also, number 3, he didn't allow, as we said this before in the last episode, he did not allow the rebels to come close to any government buildings until Israel came and actually bombed lots of them. Again, what are you trying to hide there? Why did you do that? How come basically you did not let people to come in and actually secure these buildings? You left these buildings in the hand of the old regime administrations. I mean, bro, what you doing? Number 4, even the Sunni religious establishment, which was pro Bashar al-Assad anti-rebels, he took pictures with them. Everybody is still instated, and they're going to use the same. These are, when basically people say that the religion is the opium of the masses. I mean, this has some truth in it, okay? Because some of these crooks that served the regime for 50 years and 40 years, giving fatwas, always pro-regime, doesn't matter what the regime does, even slaughtering, raping people, they still basically approved it in some way or another, and criticized the Syrian citizens and the innocent civilians of Syria. Everybody's there basically taking pictures. Why would you do that? Like, these are religious. Like, if we're speaking about basically, why would you do that? Why? Again, we can continue on and on in this number 5. There are lots of things that he did that does not make sense from a revolutionary uprising perspective, to maintain the old regime remnants, because these are the people that are already organized for the last 40 years, and they can easily come back. You understand what I'm trying to say?
And you don't have the power yet. You don't have the advantage of being organized, having to control those things, and you're letting those remnants stay. So, as you said, any moment they can come in and just take back control.
Definitely. And if you were serious, you would basically at least, put them in court. Just have just and transparent court systems for these things. Number 6 is all the Western media right now trying to cleanse his, and maybe we can see, you want to show me one of these, the CNN
Great, yeah.
interview. Let's take a look at it very quickly.
Taking Hama, after taking Aleppo, I mean, how significant is this for you right now?
I believe that everyone in life goes through phases and experiences, and these experiences naturally increase a person's awareness. A person in their 20s will have a different personality than someone in their 30s or 40s, and certainly someone in their 50s.
This is CNN, the United States mouthpiece for world news. She's asking him, are these days behind? Imagine speaking to Bin Laden and saying basically, are these days behind you? What kind of stupidity is this? This is what people need to understand. This is literally reshining and remanufacturing a new image for this person done by the global, Western media. BBC did it. CNN did it. Everybody's consistent that, this person has changed. Well, why would they do that? Do they trust him that much? Like, what is the interest of the Western countries to reshine this old piece of metal? Let's say no. These six things put together all together tells us that most likely this person is a CIA agent. And for those who understand politics, they have no doubt about it.
And what does that mean about the rebels in general? Are they sincere? Are they part of this category? Are we speaking about Joulani specifically? You want to make sure that what's the stance there?
You're asking this because some people. This is a nice question because we already answered it many times, and anybody who've watched our episodes know that the rebels as a whole group of hundreds and thousands and tens of thousands of people are from the Syrian people, from the Syrian civilians and the Syrian citizens in the country. So definitely, super majority are sincere people who love Syria, love Islam, love justice, and are anti-regime. When we speak about the agency, we only spoke about Joulani all the time, and we never basically spoke about anybody else anyway in the last 3 episodes. And this is what always it takes. It takes the head of a group to be a mole or infiltrated to really shift the whole group's dynamics. You see, few more people. I don't think he's alone. There's definitely a few more people at a senior and intermediate level to make sure that the structure does not leak or does not go against them, whatever it is. But definitely, it's a few numbers of people out of thousands and thousands of people. So it's less than 1%.
So, Sheikh, you mentioned that non-state actors need support from state actors, and
Yes.
Joulani is an agent.
Yes,
but
yes.
why is all roads leading back to the U.S.? Because everyone's saying Turkey is backing them, the rebels. Trump confirmed Turkey is backing the rebels. Israel, Iran, everyone's saying Turkey backs them.
Even Turkey themselves said we're
Turkey is saying it. So where does U.S. come from? Is U.S. controlling Turkey? What's happening?
Well, yeah, for us to understand this, definitely. The U.S. control Turkey? No. Does the U.S. influence Turkey? Yes. And definitely the Syrian theater is not a Turkish theater, right? Turkey has very vital interests. We said that again, like this. We're reviewing certain things here for the observer or for the audience. Turkey has a red line. We spoke about the red line last time. It's called militancy of the Kurdish PKK affiliates, and that is threatening the Turkish state and the Turkish national interest. Turkey will never allow that. Turkey would go into war, even against the United States, because this will end Turkey. Or at least not end Turkey, but this will threaten, actually, the national security of Turkey. And that's why you see the United States basically, taking care of that interest. And then now Turkey really serving U.S. interests fully. You understand what I'm saying? Will the U.S. leave Turkey to take over Syria? No. Without U.S. permission, no. The Turks don't have the ability to push back on America in this theater. Syria is an important piece on the Middle Eastern chessboard.
Okay.
So Syria can impact Iraq, can impact Jordan, can impact Israel, which is a vital interest for the United States. Definitely, it controls fully. Whoever controls Syria controls Lebanon, and also basically Turkey. You see what I'm saying? Plus the Kurds, and when you can impact the Kurd, you can impact not only Iraq and Turkey, but you can impact also Iran. So Syria is a very important and vital piece on the chessboard. The Americans are not going to just let it go. Let it go for what? Why? Why would they do that? It has to be under the American oversight, meaning with the American interest in Syria must be first fulfilled Once that happened, the Americans sometimes can say, look, the breadcrumb or the leftovers can be even fought over sometimes between the regional players. They don't care. They're like, look, you go fight it out, you guys, and just like make sure you don't. These are my interests. You mess with them, you're messing with us. We're gonna smash you. So the Turkey right now is literally making sure the American interest is served first. Turkey cannot just come and own Syria and khalas, because the Israelis will not allow that, and vice versa. Will Israel occupy Syria? No, because Turkey will not allow that either. So that's why basically the American says, look, we're going to have a regime, we're going to continue basically controlling this area, because they controlled it from 1970 until now. And that's why we're saying what's happening right now is a shift. It's a shift between Bashar al-Assad, who definitely was an American agent that served American interests fully, and the rebels, which is now are another American agent built by U.S. Oversight. Well, let me read to you excerpts from this Telegraph article that interviewed basically Syrian soldiers from the militias that the United States oversaw and organized in both the south and the east of Syria. The orders for these militias came by the Americans, saying that we're gonna topple Bashar al-Assad. This is a time the Americans were talking, knowing that Bashar is going to be toppled. How did they know that? If this was really, really an offensive by the rebels, you wouldn't know, right? Like, I mean, they were smashed for the last 13 years. Like, how would they know they're going to be able to topple the whole regime? But the Americans knew. They went and told the rebels, you will topple Bashar al-Assad's regime.
My God.
And they were certain. And they told him, in a few weeks before the offensive, by weeks, they came and told him, this is your time. Let me read you the excerpts. Another thing, it says, it indicates, even the person who wrote the article says, all this stuff indicates not only that Washington knew about the offensive by HTS, which toppled the Assad regime on December 8th, but it had precise intelligence about its scale. I mean, what scale? The rebels haven't been able to basically push the regime even like a 1 mile for years. They've been told to prepare for Assad's possible fall in early November, nearly 3 weeks before the offensive began. And look, all members of the force continue to get salaries that are 10 times more than the average regular person would get in the Bashar's army, whatever it is. And the RCA, which is that militia basically by the United States, says the fighters
Those are the ones in the south. RCA is in the south.
South and the east, yeah. Okay. Exactly.
Okay.
The RCA and the fighters of HTS, which is led by the Syrian interim leader Joulani, were cooperating. That's number one. Number two, the communication between the two forces were being coordinated by the Americans. The coordination between HTS and these factions were coordinated by the Americans. So, and this is. If America didn't care about Syria, there's people saying, well, America don't care. No, what do you mean it doesn't care? For the last 50 years, it maintained a regime that secured its interest in that country, which is very strategic. And right now, basically, they're coordinating everything, and they're the one who gave the green light. They're okay, we're going to move in a few weeks. The orders came from the Americans, even to the Turks. So anyway, this article exposes everything.
That's crazy. 3 weeks just before, and Bashar al-Assad actually was pretty solidified. Like, he was welcomed back into the, was it the Arab League now, and he was. It seemed like he thought he had a victory. So the fact that they knew beforehand this is going to flip, then this is crazy, and brokering the communication between these groups. So, I mean, this is more and more, as more time passes, the more information we'll get. And that's the whole point of what we're discussing today. And there's some more questions because there's so many things that we don't know what's happening, and it's leading us to not have the right picture. If you don't have the right picture, we can't discuss the right next steps. About Bashar al-Assad. This is somebody who you mentioned is under the U.S. control, but he's seen as anti-imperialist. So are you saying that Bashar al-Assad was just told to just let go of his power and his seat? And why would he accept that? Like, he was in the upper hand, as you mentioned.
What upper hand? His upper hand was the Iranians and the Russians and Hezbollah and the Iraqi militias. That's his upper hand. And he has some power. I'm not saying he doesn't, but like his power cannot reverse any American decision. So the Americans wanted to let go of Bashar because Bashar cannot rule the country without external support, and cannot be, and he's always at risk of being toppled, and the whole region be destabilized. That's not in American interest. American interest wants something that can, properly secure the country. And Bashar for the last 13 years didn't secure the country. Like, he needed support from the Russians, from the Iranians. You know what I'm saying? Like, lots of defections. His regime. Any moment, his regime could basically topple down. Right? Like, people can organize, and if that organization, succeeds, they can topple him and kill him, and that's it. It's a it's another uprising or revolution from within.
Right.
So the United States is not going to go risk that. It is imperative for the United States to replace this regime with something that secures its interest and more stable.
Okay.
Which is why the switch.
So,
and Bashar cannot oppose that. But look, the guy left. If the rebels wanted to, they would have smashed everything. Like, the guy left, and he just is secure in Russia and so forth.
So before we go into the switch. Why the switch? Some people might be listening. Hold on a second. You just mentioned Bashar was subservient to the U.S.'s interest, and because he positioned himself as the guy who was against the U.S. Anyone who spoke against him, he was like, "Oh, you're Zionist, you're this, you're that," and they would use this card, right? The same thing his father used to do. What are the evidences or certain things we can point at that say, okay, Bashar al-Assad was somebody who was serving the U.S. interests?
Well, you look at the whole history of this regime from 1970 till 24. How many years is that? 54 years, right? What did they do? Like, for example, in the 1973 war.
Yes.
What happened? The Hafiz al-Assad ordered the army to pull back after they actually secured the Golan Heights and maybe a little bit more. And why? He made a command, and there's a whole documentary on Al Jazeera that explicitly, basically, says what happened then. Everybody knows this was a treachery. He pulled the army after basically the army succeeded at pushing back the Israelis from Syrian land. And the person who defied Bashar al-Assad, one of the brigadier generals who defied Bashar al-Assad, Hafiz al-Assad's orders, he sent his jackals to kill him, and they killed him. The other units basically pulled back. He decided not to pull back, and he sent people to actually murder his own brigadier general during the war. And then they pulled back, and they gave the Israelis the Golan Heights. So you need to understand that Syrians never did anything to basically defy the Israelis. Actually, they're the best. They're the protectors of Israel.
The Assad regime, pretty much.
Definitely.
And there was nothing done to even regain it this whole time. Nothing from Bashar al-Assad's side.
There's nothing. No, nothing. The Israelis basically have said Bashar al-Assad is the best protector for Israel. They started saying that right now. And the Iranians, we have the quotation by one of the Iranian politicians, top politicians, but I think one of the senior advisors to Wilayati. He said, if Bashar al-Assad goes away, who's going to protect the borders with Israel? Like, even the Iranians are saying that. The Israelis are saying that. We've seen it in the history of this regime. We know this regime was brought by the Americans. In 1970, the United States sent a delegation of Zionist, congressmen and women and other basically representatives to meet with the regime pre-Hafiz al-Assad. And they told them, look, we need the Golan Heights for the Israelis. Right? It seems to be important for them to basically, from a strategic perspective, definitely. And they were shot down. Okay? They were not given the Golan Heights. Hafiz al-Assad traveled to Beirut to meet these people, told them, look, I am willing to give the whole Golan Heights if you help me to get to the top. And immediately this person became, Hafiz al-Assad was nothing. Within several ranks in very, very few, several months. In a couple of years, whatever it is. Ranks that would take you basically 3 to 5 years for each jump.
Wow.
Yeah, people don't know this stuff. This is the problem. So he became basically a defense minister after that, and then he toppled the regime with the help of the CIA and took over Syria. This needs to be understood. And and that's why basically, and that was 1970. In 1973, with the war with Israel, that's why he pulled his armies, backstabbed his own people, and gave the Golan Heights to the Israelis. Like, these things needs to be understood by people. Now, these things are already documented in Al Jazeera documentaries, lots of memoirs of Syrian, politicians and so forth. So even basically the ex-president of Syria, before Hafiz al-Assad, is part of the Ba'ath party, Amin al-Hafiz. He even basically, spoke about that on TV and in his memoirs and so forth. So these things need to be understood. These things need to be understood.
I want to actually bring up an interesting Facebook post by Dr. Uthman Badr, PhD in philosophy and team member from Ummah. And he had a question. I'm going to read part of it out. Question for the political analysts, old and those born yesterday. And just to continue, for those arguing that the Syrian revolution is just the U.S. swapping one agent for another, Joulani for Bashar al-Assad, let's unpack this. So here's the questions. If the U.S. has spent a decade propping up Bashar al-Assad, a tyrant with no red lines who serves their interests effectively, why would they replace him with Joulani, a figure riding an anti-tyranny wave who can't do nearly as much dirty work for them as Assad did?
So this is a philosophical assumption, which shows that, may Allah bless the brother, he's a philosophical major. Who the heck said that Joulani cannot serve better than Bashar? Joulani will serve the best job. I mean, he's an Islamist, for God's sakes. Everybody loves him. Look, the whole country loves this guy. If Bashar al-Assad is an agent, if Joulani is an agent, right, which is the case, and Bashar al-Assad is, and he's admitting that this, let's say for the sake of the argument, and Bashar al-Assad is an agent, which one is better? I would not have asked this question, to be honest. It is totally vivid. The whole country now is celebrating this guy. The whole Western media is basically, celebrating this guy. You know what I'm saying? And Bashar al-Assad is the most hated person. Which one can serve U.S. interests? Definitely this guy. Definitely a person. Which regime is going to be more stable? The regime of Joulani. I mean, Bashar al-Assad's regime, basically, he can't rule the country. He needed the Iranians, he needed the Iraqi militias, the Hezbollah militia, the Russians to keep him in power.
Part of it,
This question, sadly, is again, it comes from a philosophical perspective. It's not a political question. But again, this is the answer. There's no problem. This is the answer for it. And the Syrian regime is a regime that was crumbling. It would have, imploded any minute. You see what I'm saying? So which one is more stable? Joulani's regime. It looks amazing. Like from American perspective, like yay.
But let's say Joulani's regime is more stable. Is there not a limit to what he can do against the people of Syria, like Bashar did? So you're saying it's not just a one-dimensional thing about how you can keep your people in control and oppress them. It's also you can use the carrot to keep people in line, and
Definitely.
you don't have to go and put them all in jail.
Definitely.
Because that will create instability in the long term.
I mean, there's already people in jail by Joulani.
Yeah.
The people that the United States wants to be in jail in his areas before even this fight to topple the regime, for the last 6-7 years, are in the jails of Joulani. But see, that's what I'm saying. These questions are very philosophical questions. They don't take into account what's happening on the ground and the real politics behind the dynamics of what's happening. But may Allah bless the brother. At least he reached out and asked this question. May Allah bless him.
And another question that was on the post there, and if Turkey is also supposedly, and this is the summary of the question, if Turkey is also supposedly a U.S. agent, why would the U.S. back a trajectory in Syria that aligns more with the Islamic project than Pax Americana, right? We've seen the changes that Turkey has been doing the past 20 years. So where's the logic in that narrative? Like, why is the U.S. empowering Turkey if they're an agent in Syria, which can lead to more Islamic things happening because Turkey's been pushing more Islamic things in Turkey than just keeping status quo?
Well, again, there's lots of implicit assumptions in this question. Again, it's very philosophical in nature. Where is Turkey pushing Islamic in Turkey? What is Erdogan pushing Islamic in Turkey? Where? Bro, the guy almost basically failed the elections, last election. The CHP, which is the secular Kemalist, had a resurgence. He lost Istanbul, which is the mayor, so which is the biggest, most important political post from a regional perspective. What are you talking about? What is it that you're talking about? Yes, definitely, basically in Turkey, there is some a little bit more freedoms, and that's what makes the regime more stable. And a more stable regime, that's for example, Turkey before the Gaza war, or the war in Gaza, and now between this 15 month, the trade with Israel between Turkey and Israel increased by 30%. Oh yeah, he's spreading Islamism. What are you talking about? Seriously, you're speaking as if basically this is like more of a Western media. No. Erdogan knows his limits. And I already appreciated the guy for doing certain things. He's not as bad as some of the other tyrants in the region. And he does come from an Islamic background. But, with his pragmatism, he can't push too much Islamic sentiments. You see what I'm saying? Did he do a few things that are good? Yeah, definitely. We appreciated that. I said, we spoke about this. People can watch the other episode. Okay. So the Americans are not going to let anybody take any pie. If the Americans, we said, they're not letting even Israel to take over Syria. They're going to let Erdogan, the Islamist, to come take over Syria. It's all messed up. This whole question needs to be recreated with the right assumptions. And Turkey does serve U.S. interests. For God's sakes, one of the biggest and most important military air bases in the Middle East is inside Turkey. It has more than 5,000 personnel inside Turkey. So you tell me basically that Turkey is independent fully? No, that's not true.
So Turkey is, what other, I guess this...
Turkey revolves, it's a satellite, it revolves around American interest. It's a satellite country.
So for those who don't understand, what is a satellite country in this country?
A satellite country is a country, unlike the proxies and their full agents, that has independence within its internal politics, and is you can say subservient within its foreign policy to align with the global power. Because it's not a global power in itself. You see what I'm saying? Like even Germany revolves around, is a satellite country for the United States. Even Germany. But we'll speak about that maybe when we discuss the EU and the European politics. So trust me, Germany, Turkey, which one is stronger? So, Turkey revolves around the United States foreign policy within its geopolitical endeavors, period.
Sheikh, subhanAllah, like the reality in the ground is, we can think abstract, but then there's a reality. And then the reality is so complicated, and Jazakallah khair for breaking these things down. So I want to ask a very important question at the end, where we go from here. But still, I want to paint the picture fully and understand from your perspective that, okay, we understand Turkey's role. We understand the other players, the rebels' role. We understand Syria, the regime from before. Iran, Hezbollah, Iraqi militias. You mentioned that they're subservient to the U.S., even U.S. agents. But the Hezbollah has been attacked by the U.S. The U.S. bombed the Shia militias in Iraq trying to come in. And then Iran cut off oil to the rebels. Iran's paying a huge price in general, the sanctions and everything. How are they puppets as well? That seems to be, people might think that that's contradictory.
No, it's not, because look, at the end of the day, they know their limits. These regimes, at the end of the day, they're actors. When we say actors, this is the opposite of a passive item. So they might take a decision to push back a little bit to see if the Americans are going to take that into consideration. And then when the Americans bombed from the first one, they understood. Look, Americans are serious. Just back off. They didn't try again. They didn't push back. They didn't fight. As long as you see basically such reactions, you understand that these guys understand their limits. Hezbollah tried to do something. Al-Qusayr, he got bombed. They left to Lebanon. There's no Hezbollah anymore in Syria. The Iranians didn't even try. They babbled about sending a couple of corps or brigades or divisions even, I think. They didn't send anything. They knew that basically, we need to leave. You understand? So there's no resistance. And that's what I'm saying. There's full alignment with the United States. This is what shows alignment. Imagine that right now, Iran technically lost Hezbollah because they can't supply them anymore, with Syria. They lost Bashar al-Assad. They lost all of Syria. They lost, even... So what did they do? Nothing. Just they understood that this is what the United States wants. Back off.
If there was a time for them to fight fully, it would have been at this point where they've lost pretty much all their
and they're going to lose more and more. Yeah. Look, just wait was coming. They're going to lose everything. But they understand because they're not here to compete with the United States. Okay, they're here to compete under serving United States interest with other regional actors.
So does that mean then, Sheikh, at that point that they're an agent or not? Because it seems like they're paying the price of some maneuvers that the U.S. is not happy about. So they're not trying to compete with them, but they are trying to get their way, and then they get hit back when they go too far. It seems like it's not a relationship of subservience.
Very great question. Great question. Look, this question necessitates a whole episode when we slice it up fully. But for now, let me give you this.
Yep.
For example, if Iran really was serving its own interest, Okay, it wants to dominate the Middle East, right? So what does it do? It goes and topples the Assad regime, yeah, and embraces the Sunni civilians that sees Iran as now the savior. Everybody loved Iran in 1979. There's lots of Sunnis who became Shia, high ranked, members of the Arab society, poets and intellectuals and intelligentsia and so forth. Yeah, the Iran could have dominated if they wanted to face off and serve their own interest. You understand what I'm trying to say? No, but as you can see, basically, any type of back and forth between Israel is like more messaging. They're like, we're not here to fight, and so forth. Iran could have swayed the public opinion in the Arab world for it, but what it does, it creates hate by the Sunnis. This is what the Americans want. And so that's one piece, right? Number two, the Americans who brought Khomeini back to Iran. Khomeini was in France. Came back on a French plane. And there's a whole BBC article how the CIA helped Khomeini to take his propaganda back to Iran and distribute it across the country to make him popular, to topple the Shah. And who at the end of the day basically served on the ground to topple the Shah? The Iranian generals, the military people. So these guys were all of a sudden, they became with the Shah and they became like, spiritual Shia clergy obeying people. No, this is ridiculous. After decades and decades and decades of being secular Shah people, the army was infiltrated by the CIA, and the CIA captured a persona that it wants to further the Shia-Sunni divide, pushed him up to become the leader, toppled that old regime. And now Iran became a destabilizing agent in the greater Middle East. And that's why we've seen Iran serve American interests fully in the occupation of Iraq. There's reports of Americans actually coming down on Iranian territory to invade Iraq. And the Americans reciprocated. I mean, for God's sakes, that whole Iranian agents in the United States, you just need to think about it. The United States came and invaded this one of the richest countries on planet Earth and just gave it to the Iranians. Who's ruling Iraq now? The Iranians. Everybody knows that, right? Why would the Americans give Iraq to the Iranians? Why? Like, there's certain things that we need to do. Sometimes people think, again, emotions. You need to see history. We can discuss Iran for a long time, but Iran is a glaring agent for the United States. Iran doesn't need too much thinking. Just think Iraq, you'll know that they're agent. Think Syria, that's the whole thing. And there's more. But for a different episode, inshallah.
These are very good points. Jazakumullah khairan, Sheikh. I'm excited to discuss that in another episode as well. Final thing, one more thing here is about the relationships on the ground here in Syria. You have the SDF backed by the U.S. And Turkey is backing the rebels. And the U.S. is backing the rebels.
Yeah.
But Turkey and the SDF are like sworn enemies, right?
Yes.
So how can the SDF and the rebels be ultimately American proxies when they're, when there's this clash as well at the same time between their interests? Like, how does that work? This seems like a contradiction.
No, as long as everybody obeys America doesn't care. Like if some of its boys kind of like fight each other, right? But at the end of the day, as we said, this was resolved very simply, and this was always in the news really. And the SDF were not very happy because the Americans sided with their bigger ally, the Turks, right? So the Turks said, look, red line, we can't get these guys to be a Turkish terrorist organization that's militant, that's whatever. So that's why right now, bit by bit, they're being reversed, and the United States will take care of Turkey definitely in this one.
So in what sense are they siding with Turkey against the Kurds?
Because Turkey will never allow the Kurds to be fully autonomous, build their own country, and it will never allow that. It will invade. Turkey will invade the Kurds, 100%. And they already basically came in and bombed many and took over certain areas, and it's not any. So, but when a major power has multiple agents, those agents sometimes within the same regional theater could clash with each other, and the United States say, the United States can say, look, this is what we're going to do to fix this because the fighting might not serve American interests, and sometimes the Americans will actually put fuel on the fire and make it rage like they're doing in Sudan, for example. But again, we'll discuss Sudan later.
Sheikh, people may feel that the U.S. has this one who's against this one, and they're ultimately still the pieces almost in a chessboard. People may feel that this is depriving us of agency, and this analysis, they'll feel like, you know what, you mentioned all this stuff. Maybe I can't agree with you. It seems like what you're saying lines up, but this is killing our hopes. It seems like we have no agency. America is the one who's all powerful of everything. What do you have to say about that?
It's like Brother Uthman said, like this godlike powers. It's not like that. Can you compare Syria with America?
No way.
Like, can you compare like Hezbollah with America? Can you compare even Iran with America? Like these are huge. The difference in power balance is huge. It's not small. Okay. Now, definitely with Iran is a little bit closer. But these other Bashar al-Assad is nothing, and these other militias are nothing, and the rebels are nothing. Even Turkey has to be subservient, right? Just watch actually maybe what happened between the one time the Americans shot at in Syria by the Wagner group. So the Putin's policy is basically that these are not Russian army, so we have nothing to do with it. They're
Plausible
just
deniability.
Yeah, they're mercenaries.
Yep.
So the Secretary of Defense called the Russians like, look, we got shot at by it seems to be friendly fire, like a mistake or something, but your guys shot at our guys. So the Russians said, no, we don't have any guys over there. The Americans said, oh, okay, no problem. They smashed them. Like the Americans are massive powers. Okay, so let's go back to your question about hope. Ya akhi, the Ummah, if it becomes stronger and it unifies, it's 2 billion people. It has like half of the world's geography, has more than half of the world's natural resources, has 70% of the world's resources, has like almost half of the world's geography, maybe a little bit less, has 1/4 of the world's population, has the one unifying ideology. If the Ummah wants to be strong and compete in the international arena and become equals with the United States in terms of strength, it can. But we want the easy path of just like, I can't be. It's just like that. It's like, look, if the Ummah wants to become another world power that can be actually as it should be, becomes again a power of justice and a power of peace and a power of goodness in the world, it can. It has to follow the right thinking, which is understanding Islam as a system, as a political system of justice, and understanding that unity is the only way forward. There's no other solution except unity. Forget it.
You can't solve a problem. You can't work towards a solution if you don't even acknowledge the problem in the first place.
Oh, definitely.
If we have a delusional kind of perspective about the world, it's not compatible with the reality, with all due respect, because we want to protect our feelings and emotions. We're already being genocided. We're already being destroyed right now. Let's be mature, understand the reality, and work from there. Versus labeling when reality is spoken about as, you're a person speaking, reducing the hope. No, actually, it gives us hope because, this is the reality and we have a path to change it. Allah promised that it will change and now we can make the right move. So,
100%.
Jazakumullah khairan, Sheikh. Final question. I saw an interesting tweet by our brother Daniel Haqiqa Joe, and he asked a question online. And I want to get your thoughts on this one. I just can't answer this question and it's disturbing me. Logically speaking, why hasn't Israel marched into Damascus yet? Why wouldn't they? Out of the kindness of their hearts, or because a deal has been made between US, Israel, Turkey, and HTS?
Again, look, Daniel thinks that Israel is behind the rebels and so forth. Now, the Americans are behind the rebels, and the Americans are going to make sure they secure Israeli interest. But to understand why the Israelis did not really occupy Damascus or whatever, because first of all, it really belongs. The short answer is the United States said no. They can't disobey America. Number two, let's say basically the Americans gave them the green light. It's not in their interest. What are they going to do with Damascus, right? Like, what are they going to do with ruling another, let's say, 10 million people? It's just they can't do it. The Israeli army is small, and to occupy a country like Syria is huge. And if they occupy it, you're going to have the rebels now basically hitting them and so forth. So that's number one. Number two is they already kind of took the strip that they need, strategic areas in Syria, and that's all what they really need. So there's no purpose. It's a heavy cost, and they already took what they need. So there's no real reason behind them going occupying more of that country. And as I said, basically, if they're going to occupy the whole, can they occupy the whole Middle East? They could try, and the Americans would not allow them to do so. So there's multiple reasons, as you can see.
Well, Jazakumullah khairan, Sheikh, as always, for your analysis. And for everybody, share, like, comment, subscribe. Don't be a shadow viewer. Don't be an incognito viewer. Subscribe and follow our content And do comment. We do want to engage and answer some questions for the next upcoming episode. So stay tuned for the i3 Pulse. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.